Súper. Oye, bueno, bienvenidos a todos chicos, muchas gracias por estar en esta sesión. Aquí les cuento que, bueno, estamos en conjunto con iAméricas en este webinar sobre inteligencia artificial responsable, ¿cierto? Y ahí para darles un poco de contexto sobre esta sesión, les cuento que iAméricas es una iniciativa impulsada por Adigital. Adigital es la Asociación Española de la Economía Digital. Y el BitLab también, esta iniciativa está impulsada también por el BitLab, que es el brazo de innovación y emprendimiento del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. Y esto está sucediendo todo dentro del marco de la iniciativa del FairLab. ¿Ya? La misión de este taller bueno, a Digital también y Américas, tiene como misión fortalecer la competitividad de las startups y de las pymes mediante el uso de la inteligencia artificial ética y responsablemente, ¿ya? Hoy en día Startup Chile es aliado oficial de esta iniciativa y estamos apoyando con la difusión de sus formaciones especializadas en inteligencia artificial en nuestra comunidad internacional de emprendedores, en donde ustedes aquí obviamente juegan un rol súper importante. Contarles también algo tan relevante para ustedes. Este webinar es el punto de partida para participar en un programa de formación que se va a lanzar en conjunto con iAméricas. Y este programa de formación incluye 3 formaciones especializadas que combina sesiones asincrónicas y una masterclass en vivo, ¿ya? Las formaciones que se van a cursar más adelante son Introducción a la Inteligencia Artificial Responsable. Está programada para el 25 de junio ser la masterclass. Después vamos a tener una formación en inteligencia artificial responsable para el desarrollo sostenible y una tercera formación que todavía está por definirse, ¿ya? Eh, por ser ustedes parte de la comunidad de Startup Chile, van a tener acceso a estas formaciones de manera gratuita y estas formaciones tienen una certificación al final, ¿ya? Así que también es un aporte súper importante para su desarrollo profesional y obviamente para que vayan incorporando la inteligencia artificial de manera ética y responsable dentro de sus soluciones. Bueno, dado este contexto, le quiero pasar la palabra a Justo, quien es el director de inteligencia artificial en Adigital, y va a dictar, bueno, este webinar y todas las sesiones de formación que ya les mencioné están también respaldadas por Justo. Así que Justo, ahí el micrófono es todo tuyo.
Muchísimas gracias, Tere. Solo una pregunta antes de empezar. ¿Inglés o en español? ¿Cómo preferís?
A ver. Who is only speaking in English in the session, guys? Is anyone only English in here? No.
Yeah, how you want. So
Daniel. Daniel.
Daniel, there you are.
Yes,
Oh, I'm so sorry, Daniel. I didn't
it's okay.
saw
No
you.
problem.
If we
Yeah,
can continue in English, Justo, it will be
absolutely.
great.
that's fine. That's fine.
Thank
Yeah, no,
you.
no issue at all.
It's,
Thanks, Daniel, for speaking up. All right. So, thanks so much, Tere. Thanks so much, everyone, for your interest in responsible AI. And my name is Justo, and I'm going to be giving this small workshop about what we call responsibility by design. Let me introduce myself very quickly. Apart from what Teresa said, I'm the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at Digital, and also its VP in technology. Digital is a Spanish association for the digital economy. But basically, our role is not just confined to the Spanish borders, but what we try is to merge what we know from Spain, but also in Brussels and the European Union with this kind of access of collaboration with Latin America and the Caribbean. My background is technical. I have a master's degree in computer science. I have a PhD in computer science and data. So I've been working in data analytics and AI systems before it was cool. Now it's cool, so I'm very happy for that. And I've also very happy to be speaking here, as Teresa already knows, because I'm an entrepreneur myself. I built a couple of startups, so it's really great to see more and more startups coming from Startup Chile, which at least from Spain is a huge reference in America from the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So thanks so much for the opportunity. So let's cut to the meat. So why responsible AI? I'll explain a little bit in the middle the role of e-Americas in this context, but let's start with things that I hope are useful to you. Again, this is like a small workshop, so I want to start with an example. Maybe some of you know this case because this is HireVue. It's a relevant tool today that is used by many companies to hire people, to help hire people in the hiring process in medium to big size companies. And it's been going on since 2015, something like this. And around 2018, actually a little bit before that, late 2017, 2018, 2019, even in some countries, for example, in Europe, even in 2020 with the pandemics and 2021, there was a huge hype around AI, the classic AI before generative AI and hiring. Lots of companies were trying to find a way to use AI to speed up this hiring process. As I mentioned, HireVue was being used in big companies such as GE, Unilever, many more than that. And basically what it had at that moment, it was an algorithm that was able to they mentioned classification of personality traits, emotional intelligence, based on facial expressions, sorry, tone of voice, words, meaning that they were using video interviews, they were using conversations in order to analyze that, okay? So around 2018, that was so far so good, because if you come from that time, I was building AI models and AI systems at that time. Basically, you focused on models that worked and that worked cheaply. That's what we focused on at that moment. But you grow and things start to get a little bit harder. You know that. So in at the end of 2019, EPIC, which is a non-profit organization, is the Electronic Privacy Information Center. They're very focused on freedom of speech and freedom of expression. They filed a complaint against HireVue. The complaint was on the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, basically saying that HireVue was committing, as I said there, unfair and deceptive practices in violation of the FTC Act, especially the Section 5, that basically said, summarizing, you cannot deceive your customers, deceive your users by doing this, or saying that you do things that you don't do well. So basically, they were saying that the company failed to comply with AI principles, universal guidelines, but mainly specifically that it was using facial recognition for things where facial recognition doesn't work. Okay. So, this is at the end of this text. You see what other parts of the complaint were saying. Opaque, proprietary algorithm. So, this was at the end of 2019. And the first reaction of HireVue was saying that they weren't doing anything wrong, and that actually they weren't using any facial recognition. Then they had to say, oh, well, you actually are using facial recognition. But that they already did a private company algorithmic audit of its software, and that there was no bias, no issue at all. But they didn't actually make that algorithm audit public. So it was just saying that, yeah, we did it and it works. A little bit more than a year later, there was too much pressure for them. Some started to lose some customers, so they had to first admit that they were using facial analysis. So they said that they halted using facial analysis for the application, but that they were still using audio analysis with intonation and written analysis for behavior to assist with hiring decisions. They were able to kind of solve that initial crisis. So the company kept on going. But things sometimes they don't go as expected, because I found this news piece in 2025, but actually since 2019, there started to be some academic papers, and is very well explained in this book from Kate Crawford. I don't know if you've read it. It's Atlas of AI. I really, really recommend it. I think the title is horrible because maybe you think that it's going to tell you how AI works. It's more than that. It actually goes very, very deep into the issues that AI may have, the biases, the lack of equity, and things like this, with the opportunities that it has as well. But in that book already mentions that in 2019, there was a meta-analysis, meta-review, academic review of how, AI or machine learning models are using facial recognition work when trying to gauge emotions, basically stating that it doesn't work, as simple as that. So basically, there were many people saying, actually, what Harvey and other companies are doing doesn't really work. And to make things worse, because once you start to be to have issues, and hopefully you don't ever feel that, there was just a few months ago, there was another complaint filed against Intuit, Harvey, because Harvey was a tool used by Intuit, saying that a deaf woman that was in a video interview process for Intuit, where Harvey was being used, was basically being discriminated, because that person was deaf and that person was indigenous, and basically she was denied a promotion because the system was saying that she wasn't able to actually communicate well enough, and she wasn't able to promote their ideas in an expected way. Actually, she was deaf and she was not native. So in terms of the language, so that was kind of the main reason that was going on. Okay, we will mention later how this is going. This is not a finished story, but I wanted to mention this one as an example, and I think I will mention many more during this 45 minutes, but as an example, and I think it's a very interesting example and very key example of my main summary of this talk. When people typically talk about responsible AI, ethical AI, they're talking about, hey, we should be nice, we should behave well. And this is really, really important. But in this talk, I want to go a little bit farther, which is in many cases, not in all of them, of course, but in many cases, if you are not responsible, what you are doing is breaking trust out of your customer, breaking trust out of your users. You are not going to be competitive enough because other people are going to try to do it better than you. And not taking care of the things that you need to take care of when you are in a specific area of AI is going to bring you problems in the short term or in the midterm. In this case, doing emotional analysis with video and not taking care about biases was, I think, a huge mistake. And understandable, because they were starting in a moment, 2015, 16, 17, where not many people cared about that. But now we are in 2025. And in the past, there were like two main, I would say, dimensions where building AI models. It works and it's cheap. But now there are many other dimensions that we need to take care of, and I hope to be able to explain that in a second. Okay. Please interrupt me. This is a conversation. I mean, I have lots of slides, but I don't care if we don't reach to the end. Just if you have any question or comment, if you agree with me or disagree with me, please let me know. That's the way we have to continue learning and continue discussing this, for me, important topic. Okay.
Justo?
So yeah.
I have a question. On that case, that was like automated, like an automated interview, or it was like automatically like processed and then somebody took the decision to don't like promote this woman? How
No,
was the case? Was a person in the middle, or there was
yeah.
not?
These tools enable both approaches, because the regulation depends on the countries. For example, in Europe right now, or at least starting next year, not having a human in the loop would be totally forbidden for employability purposes, totally forbidden. But in some other countries, it's still not that way. So the tool itself enables you to do both. I mean, I'm not talking just about hard view. I know I worked in the employability arena around those years, so many people, many tools enable that. What they did, and that's the main issue they had, is that they basically provided a very opinionated, I would say, analysis of the emotional approach, the behavioral capabilities, the communication capabilities of that person based on the interview. Then it was up to the company to decide whether they would just take it for granted. Okay, this is what the machine says, so we don't hire, or have a person in the loop. But the fact that they were using a system that actually was started to be shown that doesn't work was part of the crisis that they went into. Hope
Okay.
it answered your question.
Sorry?
I hope it answered your questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for breaking the ice. All right. So again, interrupt me in a moment. Where we are in AI right now, I mean, I'm going to go quick here because probably many of you are working, maybe building your AI model, or maybe using other people's AI models, or thinking about how AI may affect for good or for bad your startups. So, but for me, the first important thing to say is that compared to other technologies that we had in the past and now, like the metaverse, the blockchain, even in some cases, or now we're talking a lot about quantum and things like this. The main difference is that right now, as of today, and for the last 12 years, AI has market reality. So we see AI everywhere. Of course, now we have generative AI, and this is different, and we're still seeing how generative AI breaks the mold in terms of offering new services to the final user. And we see some very interesting examples, but the truth is that AI in general, we see it everywhere. You have a Roomba at home, it uses AI to when they're going through your floor. If I always say the same, but it's true. The reason why my pictures are not horrible, because I'm horrible as a camera man, is because the AI takes good pictures for me, or the fact that the battery lasts much more than expected is because of AI. If you watch streaming service, if you are looking for a job, but even in science, like protein folding things, or in this case, the ability to find footsteps from animals in danger of extinction. Those are just a few of the thousands of cases where AI is actually working, and it works now. So even though some people that, of course, I know that are not here today, but started to find about AI in 2022 or 2023, the fact is that since 2012, 2013, there started to be real actual cases that were used in all around the industry. The thing is that users are getting used to AI, and this is great, but this also brings you some issues and some challenges, okay? What is great today, when you started to see Grammarly use AI to correct your syntax, for example, and it looked like magic, or you start seeing some chatbots in Walmart or MyFitnessPal. Well, this is a US image, but it doesn't matter. We see it everywhere. It looks like magic, but very quickly we get used to it. It's like when we started to see mobile apps, and at the beginning it was like magic again, but very quickly we start to ask our providers, hey, why don't you have a mobile app? You need to have a mobile app, and I'm not going to go to your crappy website if you don't have a mobile app. Well, now this is something very, very similar. We are starting to expect companies and startups to provide some kind of AI services. Maybe it's a chatbot, maybe something a bit more sophisticated, but we need to take it into account when thinking about AI in 2025. The thing is that we have to accept there are risks when using AI. And of course, again, I'm preaching to the choir here, because I'm sure you know lots about hallucinations, about unexplainability, lack of explainability, biased results, violation of privacy, lack of human control, as you were very well mentioned. There are many things that both in the old classical AI, machine learning and the like, and the new deep learning mechanisms using LLMs or transformers or whatever, there are things that we need to take into account. But my point from the beginning is that there are also tangible benefits. Okay, and then I go from bottom to top. First, from a reactive standpoint, is building responsible AI allows you to be more compliant with regulation. Okay, and of course, you may be already in a country that has regulation. I live in Spain, and we are under the AI Act, and so that my conversation with companies, with SMEs, with startups is like, well, you can complain if you want, but you have to be compliant. I mean, it's the law. Maybe not today, starting next year, but it's going to be the law. In your cases, it could be a little bit different at the beginning, because you may say, hey, in Chile or in Uruguay or in Colombia, there's no regulation yet, so I don't have to take care about that. And you are right, and maybe you can take advantage of that. But there are two reasons to take this into account. First, the regulation will come. We don't know if it's going to be as strict as in Europe, or it's going to be less strict, but there's going to be some kind of regulations. And actually, depending on the area where you are in health, or you are in the toy industry, I'm pretty sure regardless of the country you're at, there's already regulation about AI, because sectorally, AI regulation has been more advanced in the last 10 years than the horizontal regulation, okay? And secondly, the important thing here is that you guys are startups. Maybe some of you are already scale-ups. So you want to become international. You want to reach other countries, other regions. And in some of those regions, you're going to find the need for regulatory compliance. If you try to go to Brazil, Brazil is about to have their AI regulation. We know that Uruguay is behind it, Chile is behind it. If you try to go to South Korea, if you try to go to the Europe, of course, you are going, or you already have some kind of regulation. So you need to take that into account. Maybe not for day one, but from day two at least. And then there's some other more proactive reasons. Cost savings, we'll talk a little bit about that. That's also part of responsible AI in order to generate energy efficiency. If you do risk mitigation, you can find relevant failures in your product before it's in production, so you can avoid some critical issues with your partner, with your customers or your users. If you become transparent, we'll talk about some of these concepts in a second, but if you can transparent or try to be more explainable, so your model is able to explain to your user why that decision was made, you increase the customer trust. And this is critical in this moment where you are competing against big companies as well. If we do things well, there's an improvement in brand recognition. We're saying, hey, we are building great AI, but we're building great AI that is responsible, that works, that builds trust. That gives you a competitive advantage, especially in some specific cases like bias mitigation and things like this. And some of you, maybe not all, because you don't need to want this at the beginning, but some of you may decide that you want to be a leader in that your competitive advantage is going to be focused on being responsible and your participation in influence groups and being kind of the face of this way of doing things. Of course, that depends on the kind of a startup or scale up you have, and I'm not gonna claim that I know all your cases, but we are finding some relatively small startups that are actually raising money, not because just of that. I mean, they do many things well, but it's an important part of the conversation when they're talking to venture capital and when they're talking to customers in order to continue growing. So how do we apply responsible AI in practice? Because if you take a look at that, if you look on search on Google or Perplexity or Gemini, very probably the first things or the first results you're going to get are around the AI ethical principles that you can find from the OECD or from UNESCO or from the World Bank or from different multilateral and multinational institutions. And you will find words like human-centered values, fairness, transparency, explainability, accountability, which are, I'm not being ironic here, they're really, really important. They're really, really, really important. But when we try to apply this into real cases, it's really tough. I mean, if I'm thinking about an SME or a small startup that is building an AI for automated payments for small companies, if you read that and you read that, hey, that system should be should have human-centered values, what does that mean? Doesn't mean anything at all. I mean, it's very, very difficult for a small company, for a small startup, for a small SME to actually understand what that means beyond the philosophical approach. Okay, so responsible AI for not just for us at the Americas, but it's kind of becoming kind of the general definition is the application of ethical AI in specific cases. Okay, so that you are able to comply with those ethical principles, but in a very, very specific way. And that's what we're trying to do at the Americas. We know that this is difficult. We know that in your cases, you are startups, you are scale-ups, you are trying to go as fast as possible. And maybe you have a very good technical AI team, but you don't have the resources to hire a philosopher and a lawyer specialized in this and all things like this. Well, eventually you probably will need, but let's start by walking. And this is what we're trying to do at the Americas, to walk along startups and SMEs that are, and venture capital, also venture funds that are interested as well in this concept of increasing productivity and trust and competitiveness via responsible AI, to work along with them and help them with these important but challenging approaches. And this is what we're trying to do here. All right, and why we would try to do that, and this is just a little intermission, but I think it makes sense to what I will mention in a second, because we see that there's a disconnection between principles and practice. I just mentioned that AI ethical principles are really interesting, but going down to the from the clouds to the theater and actually implementing the realities is really tough. That means that there's also and implies that there's a low adoption and trust in the region. It happens everywhere, it's international, but what we see in the Latin American region is that there's a limited adoption of AI. I know many of you are fighting against this, but a limited adoption means that there's an even lower adoption of responsible AI, and that means a lower trust from the customers, which who are also reading in newspapers that AI is bringing the end of the world. So we need to be able to balance that. And also not just in the region, but there's a global trend in AI regulations and frameworks. So you also need to be aware of that, as I mentioned at the beginning. And just a summary of what I just mentioned, we believe that by being responsible, meaning being inclusive, being transparent, being sustainable, being applying equity and fairness, we can increase the confidence of the users and your customers, and therefore make you more competitive. And this is the approach that we are proposing in this initiative. All right, but enough about the Americas by now. So what responsible AI tools are there? So let me give you some examples, specific examples. Or, okay, we have the principles, transparency, explainability. Okay, how do I implement that? Okay, this is just a small sample of everything that you can find when you start to dig down into our responsible AI. But I will explain a few of them. But you can see here that we have things like templates, model card, that is basically a template. We have tools like bias detection tools. We have technical analysis like carbon footprint analysis. And we have things that are more ethereal, but at the same time important, like literacy. Making your own team, but at the same time your customers' literacy improve, so they fully understand what they can achieve with AI. Okay, let me go, not all of them, but with a few examples of them, with some cases. Okay, the important thing here is that this is a multifaceted approach. You have to take into account technology, of course. You have to take into account your business, of course. Also regulation, increasingly more, ethics, moral, but even geopolitics. Okay, we're in a moment where AI is part of geopolitics. Even the type of GPU that you choose, or the type of AI model that you're going to choose, also is related to geopolitics. Okay, so you have also to take that into account when thinking about your AI. So let me give you some examples. Okay, let's talk first about bias detection tools. Okay, I'll give you an example later, but this is an introduction. So let's talk about cosmetics. Okay, when an AI tool, and probably, I don't know, some of you already use it, but there are many websites from top cosmetics vendors that analyze your face with a video or with a few pictures in order to recommend you recommendations based on your skin tone, the type of sweat that you have, and things like this. Again, how do we ensure, if we're that cosmetics company, that the decisions made in terms of cosmetic recommendations are based on specific needs, and it's not biased. It's not biased towards specific tones of skin, or biased towards selling you the most expensive cosmetics that they have in their inventory. How do we make sure as consumers that the recommendation that that system is giving me is not biased? Okay, there are some tools to it. This is not a moment to talk about specific techniques. We talk about that in the Americas courses, but this is the thing that we need to evaluate when we have an AI model. Is there anywhere where I can have bias inserted in my system, even without being aware of that? Because let me give you an example, and this is a real example. This example comes from a data set from Google. It has a few years ago, so you're not going to find this radicalism now in any LLM, but you're going to see some things that are similar. Probably some of you know if you are technical, but I will explain. One of the things that large language models like GPTs and Geminis and tools of the world do, part of the magic is because they were able to use a technique called embeddings that transform words into numbers and keeping the semantic relationship among those words. What this means, in a very simple example, if I say king minus man plus woman, that is queen. Okay, I took the concept of a king, I took out the concept of man, I added the concept of woman, and that is a queen. Okay, and this is why when you are talking to an LLM, if you say, yeah, you are, I'm your king and you are my, it will respond queen, because it understands the context, okay, of these semantic relationships between words, but that they are treated as numbers. Okay, this is great in this example, but what happens with this? Okay, doctor minus father plus mother is nurse. Okay, so it seems that women cannot be nurses, they cannot be doctors. A programmer is a man, but a woman should be a homemaker. Okay, well, maybe we have an issue here. A realist, when it's a man, becomes a feminist when it's a woman. Okay, so there's, in some cases, subtle changes, in some other cases, less subtle changes in terms of how, in this case, gender is understood by the data that a model is trained on, that can change the conversation totally. And I put this last one because I love it in terms of, it's funny. Pregnancy for her is related to kidney stone for him. Okay, yeah. This I try to find some that are maybe funnier, some others are not that funny, but you won't find this now in LLMs. But you're gonna find, again, subtleties about how women and men are being treated. You're gonna find subtleties in how different races are treated. You're gonna find subtleties in how different classes are being treated when you're using an LLM. And that's bad enough. But if you take an LLM or another kind of AI model for your own systems, because you want to build your own startup with your own systems, you need to take that into account. And you need to actually evaluate, okay, what does bias mean for me? And how do I evaluate that what I'm getting is good enough for my customers? We have adversarial techniques as well. This, you can imagine a chatbot that well, and probably you've seen that. You don't want a chatbot to fight back to a user that is being aggressive. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so you want to train your chatbot before you put it into production, before you deploy it, so that it behaves well, even if it's being vigorously attacked, okay, with bad words, with swear words, and things like this. How do you achieve that? There are many techniques, but one of them is the adversarial technique, where you basically, before putting your chatbot into production, you have another chatbot that attacks your chatbot, just to make sure that is never going to react in a way that we don't want. Okay, there are great examples like Microsoft Stay. Probably some of you know it. In 2016, that was a chatbot published by Microsoft as a Twitter account that in less than 12 hours became basically a fascist and a Jewish hater. As simple as that, in 12 hours. Okay, you had to be taken out by Microsoft. Okay, so adversarial techniques is one potential technique we have to avoid things like biases, to improve robustness and security, etc., etc. Let me give you another example, also related to chatbots. This is a real example. I changed the sector and some cases, but imagine that I have a sports shoe marketplace or store, and I build a chatbot, and I say, hey, welcome to the store. How can I help you? And I say something like what you see on the screen. I say, I'm looking for some sports shoes because my doctor has recommended me to start running. And hey, I'm a user. I don't know why. I'm a human. I start writing, I'm suffering from a clinical depression, and it looks like this will be good for me. Okay. Maybe some of you are thinking that this is crazy, but if you've ever worked with in a support system, there are many people writing all kind of stuff in support. Okay. All right. What's the issue here? The issue here is not that the user wrote this. Okay. You may say, well, I don't know, maybe the problem is that the LLM is going to start treating the depression. Well, that may be a problem because your chatbot should not be treating other. Don't use your own model and you don't train your own model. What you may do here is take this text and send it directly to the third-party model. And in many countries, that's against the law because you are using a third-party vendor and you are giving personal and private and sensitive information from me to them without my explicit permission. Okay, and this is so in Europe, but this is also so in almost every country following what is called the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. Okay, so it could bring you issues, not just reputational issues, because suddenly the chatbot starts talking about depression, but also legal issues because you're doing something that you should not permit. How do you solve this? With adversarial techniques that are able to understand that this is happening, and then you put some guardrails in your system so that when conversations like this happen, they're not sent forward to the LLM, and you answer directly from your system, say, I'm sorry, I cannot handle this kind of information. Please write it again in a more neutral format or something like this, okay? The good news is that model reliability continues to rise. So we see how the performance benchmarks that you see here, if you compare it to the human baseline, they're getting better and better, actually in some cases even better than humans, and that the hallucination rate is going down. This is an HM benchmark. This is one of the most typical benchmarks to measure the level of hallucinations of LLMs, and it's going down and down. This is by type of LLM, but in the last years it went down from like I think it was 8% in 2023 to like 1% in 2025. So things are going better, but we need to take care of that in order to avoid issues with our users. Then we have explainability algorithms. Just another example. We talked about that at the beginning, which is okay. There's a question here. Yeah, I see it. I thought you can actually send the anonymized text to an external LM for it to understand the question, right? Yeah, as long as it's anonymized and is not related to your user, that can be done. But that means that you need to do some post-processing of the text being sent by the system, because in this case, I just said I was going to the I was having a depression, but imagine that I put my personal tax ID or my identification ID or my address. Again, users are crazy, but we need to take care of that. We need to avoid problems because somebody writes something that we didn't think about. So you have to be careful with that. So thank you, Christian. And I see you are wise med, so I guess it's a kind of medical health tech. So yeah, you need to be very, very careful about that. I can tell you that. And probably you know that better than me. Same thing with explainability algorithms. If I go to a financial institution, I ask for a loan, I request a loan, and the loan is not provided to me, and I ask why didn't you give me a loan? The answer cannot be because the AI said so. It doesn't make any sense. You know, I as a user, as a customer, I need to have an explanation of why you didn't give me the loan, because I need to have the opportunity to come back 3 months later saying, hey, my situation changed and I want to ask for a loan again. Okay, or why does a logistics AI select one delivery route over another? I mean, there are many cases in which the user needs to have an explanation. And we all know that LLMs are not good at that, but we need to find ways by using some techniques or using other kinds of models that help me be more explainable. Let me give you another example about explainability. Okay, this is a real case. If you are come from the academic world, maybe some of you already know about this case. This is a very simple AI model. It's a classification system where I just want to classify between huskies and wolves, okay? So I train a model by providing hundreds and thousands of pictures of wolves and huskies and saying, this is a wolf, this is a wolf, this is a husky, this is a husky, this is a wolf, this is a wolf, this is a husky, this is a wolf. And as I do it thousands of times, the model should learn what's a husky and what's a wolf, okay? So in this case, that's what they did. And when they went into production, it failed. It failed like crazy, okay? This is a husky? No, this is a wolf. This is a wolf? No, this is a husky. So what's going on here? I mean, it should be easy. This is in 2015, 2016. Those things started to be relatively straightforward at that time. So why was it failing? Well, it was failing because we were basically thinking of the machine learning model learning as a human. And the truth is that the machine learning model was not learning as a human, was learning as a machine learning model, okay? The main reason, the explanation of these mistakes was that in the training data set, most of the pictures of wolves had snow in the background. So the system learned to take a look at the snow in the background to classify the picture as wolf or husky. It didn't look at the huskies' blue eyes, it didn't look at the round faces of the huskies compared to the wolves. It looked at whether there was snow in the background, okay? And this is something that as humans doesn't make sense, because it's like, why don't you look at the husky? But for the machine learning model, this is not a husky, this is a set of pixels, okay? And it's gonna look the patterns based on the data set that it was trained on, okay? Imagine this on your system, okay? On a medical system, try to find some disease on a system based on a patient based on some information provided by the patient, and the machine learning system looking at things that we don't expect, and therefore providing some results that may be really dangerous. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned being the healthcare sector is scary to know how patient data are currently handled in the Latin region. I can only imagine. So that's why this is so important to mention. Carlos?
Yes, Justo. Especially on this topic of like explainability, how are companies handling like the explainability of the LLMs, right? Because this is a classical machine learning model, right? So you can look inside the network and understand what happened, right? But when you have companies, for example, providing reports for, I don't know, skills development on workers inside companies, and they are using LLMs are on the market, right? Like ChatGPT, I don't know, DeepSeek, right? How are those challenges being addressed right now? What is like the strategy being applied?
Yeah, great question, Carlos. Thanks so much. I think there are 3 levels right now. The first level is the most, I wouldn't say basic, because it's being used by advanced companies, but it's the classical ones, which is when you have typical machine learning, or classical machine learning models, where you can use techniques like SUP or LIME to at least try to find some way around that. It doesn't always work, but at least for even for deep learning models, but that are not LLMs, it is basically the way to go in most cases. The second level is right now we're trying what companies are trying to do with LLMs is by using guardrails, by using foundations, by using specifications to try to constrain things like the chain of thought approaches to constrain how an LLM can answer questions so that we minimize the hallucinations. It's not 100% safe because sometimes the answer, the explanation that is going to answer is also going to be hallucinated. But what companies are trying is to minimize even below that 1% that I mentioned before. The third level that I found really interested, I'm sure there are many more companies doing that, but the most specific case I know is Anthropic. Anthropic published like a year ago a great paper that if you like this topic, I recommend, talking about monosemanticity. I'll try to write it down here because I always say that if you learn this word, you can go with your friends at parties and look cool because it's like, you know about monosemanticity. The idea here is that what Anthropic is trying to do now with the smaller models, not the big models, is to have LLMs that actually have what is typically known as the Jennifer Aniston neurons, meaning that each neuron in the deep learning neural network has concepts, specific concepts. Okay, it doesn't have a kind of like this happens now that is like a diffusion model of things like this. It's more like, so if you take a look at all the different nodes that are being activated on specific inference, then you can actually make sense of what's going on inside the mind of the mind, quote unquote, of course, of the neural network. And that paper was really interesting, and I would recommend you that because I believe not only Anthropic, but other companies are trying to do that. Maybe not with the huge models, with the large language models, but with the smaller language models. And well, there are some other academic papers over there, but I think this, you look for monosemanticity Anthropic, you will find some interesting discussion about that.
Thank you, Justo.
Yeah, a pleasure.
Great insight.
Thank you. All right. Measurement of energy efficiency. We're trying to be sustainable. We're trying to be kind to the world. And I think this is really important. But even if we don't care that much about that, we want to be energy efficient. Okay, we want to make sure that the cost of training our system or using other people's model is low enough so that it can make our company competitive. So in that case, again, prices are falling, and prices are falling because energy costs are falling as well. I mean, in the last 2 years, we've seen the bad news in many cases, and this is good. This is important as well about how more and more energy is being used. But the truth is that energy is being used in a much more efficient manner. Depending on your company, depending on your sector, on the things that you're doing, you might suffer more from the high energy usage on the one side, but we start to see how we can use distilled models. We can use, for example, the laptop I have in front of me is a 4-year-old Mac. Here I can have distilled models, 15 gigabytes, like 7 billion, 15 billion models that work extremely well for most of the things that I need. Some of them, for example, the new models, distilled models from Google, they are already multimodal. I can generate images. I can do lots of things with no internet connection while I'm in a plane. And the energy usage is the usage of my laptop. So there are many options to use AI that you can take into account when thinking about efficiency and in energy usage. And I think just to finish, and I want to be aware of the time here. I don't want to not use too much of your time. Of course, there are other examples, like, in some cases you need or you want to have assessment certifications. You want to be able to raise your hand and say, I'm being transparent, I'm being explainable, I'm not being biased, or at least I'm doing as much as I can in bias mitigation. Because that way, for many companies, this is important. That's the same thing that why people have ISO 9000 or ISO 20001, because you want to increase the trust and reliability of the system, because you want to increase your reputation, because you want to reduce regulatory risk. For example, in many countries, they have what I call regulatory harmonization, meaning that if you follow and you are certified in some specific standards, by default, the regulatory supervisor will take as an advantage for you that because you are already certified. Okay, so you have to also take that into account. There are also some cases like misuses, issues or risks in industry that requires this level of transparency, and that's why this certification in transparency, or at least taking a look at the models that you want to use as a startup and seeing the level of transparency that they have already by scores like, for example, this report from Stanford AI index report. Those are important also. Okay, it's not just how nice Granite is compared to some other. It's because if I get that transparency, I can make sure how my system is going to work. Since we're a little bit bad on time, I'm gonna jump a few examples. But if you are interested in the course, we will see some of those examples also both in the webinar and in the courses. But I wanted to finish with some learnings just based on what we've seen in this presentation. Then we can add more. Okay, first, you can outsource your technology, but you cannot outsource your ethical risk, because if your AI vendor fails, your brand falls. If you are, as a startup here in this talk from Startup Chile, you're a model user, you need to make sure that your AI vendor follows some minimum elements. And if you are a model creator, you are creating your models for your system or for your customer's sake, you also need to take into account that this is gonna happen more and more. Your customers are gonna require more information, not just accuracy and cost. So you need to take that into account. Also baking the responsibility from MVP, meaning that things that work at the beginning very well in your startup first may change when you become professional, let's say, and also things change very rapidly. Things that were accepted in 2017, 2018 would not work at all in 2025. So you need to start running bias checks, for example, or have a due diligence checklist, things like this. And for those of you that are already trying to raise funds, in some cases, I wouldn't say that in all of cases, but in some cases, VCs are starting to take a look at that as well, and adding responsibility to the due diligence. Honest limits. Again, I had my own startup, so I know what it is to fake it till you make it, of course. But set some honest limits. Okay, Harvey's had some issues because they were saying things like, we read emotional intelligence. Well, that may work short term, but maybe some customers are going to say, show me why this is true. Okay, so this is something to take into account. Yeah. We don't have time now to talk about that, Christian. But yes, that's also an important discussion about how to use the AI standards and the difference between regions. Absolutely. Understand the limits of technology, what users want and what they expect. And again, overselling may make sense at the beginning, but be careful with that. And AI is much more than technology, and I'm pretty sure you already know about that, but I'm pretty blunt on that, and I felt it with my own companies. Having great AI machine learning engineers is great, but AI right now is much more than that. It's business, it's ethics, it's geopolitics. You need to take those dimensions into account when building AI or when using AI. And of course, understand the responsibility value chain. No, that was not my fault. This is ChatGPT's fault. I'm sorry, no. The system is yours, and you are selling to your customers, and you have some kind of responsibility. Okay, so it's also your responsibility to make sure that your providers are doing their job, especially with the huge size of those providers. Okay, so you need to be careful on that. And again, just to finish, look for the second and third derivatives, meaning that what happens, if I do this, what happens? If this happens, what happens next? So sometimes biases or equity is not clearly seen at the beginning. It's seen when you take a look at the derivatives going forward. So that's very difficult. Understand that when you're in a startup, you kind of are running with it. but be ready to react whenever you find some potential secondary derivative to the issues you're facing. All right. Just to finish, what happened with Harview? Well, Harview is still a company. It's still a respected company in the field. They had lots of issues. They lost lots of clients. I don't know if this is the end of the story, because this could be also vaporware. But the truth is that they started trying to be more open and more transparent in everything they do, and they actually created a system so that even customers can take a look at how they are training and using their algorithms. Okay, if I put my auditor's hat, well, I would like to see this in 1 or 2 years, but at least there are changes that are happening. Okay, so at least companies, even with these issues that they had, are trying to react and be more transparent and more open to what they're doing. So what will you find with the Americas? And this will take just a few minutes, okay? As Teresa said, we're promoting with the Startup Chile this training on responsible AI, and then going on with additional actions that we will do together, of course, if you guys and girls are interested. But basically, well, we have other strategic partners, of course. Startup Chile is, of course, one of our key ones and the first ones as well. And what we're doing in Americas is basically awareness, training, and walking along startups and SMEs to help them use proper responsible AI tools. Okay, so we don't want just to train and good luck. We want to be with you and help you with that, of course, for those of you that are interested. Okay, so as Teresa said, we're doing a training in different topics: responsible introduction, responsible AI, sustainable development, gender perspective, vulnerable populations, for SMEs, how to select providers, for example. So we're trying to create different things, and we're doing it with asynchronous courses. So you can watch them on your own, then you do a test, and then you can get a badge from eAmericas and Startup Chile if you achieve it. Okay, the courses are meant for busy people, so it's 3 hours, but divided by peels. So it's like a 10-15-minute peel with different topics. So it's kind of easy. And of course, as I mentioned, of course, it's totally free for you, because what we want is to start creating this community of responsibly minded AI experts, as I'm sure you are. Okay, so you will find this. Where you will find the different courses. Right now we have one single course open, which is the introduction to responsible AI. But then we're going to be opening the other courses for you in this case. And just to finish, and promise this is my last slide before saying goodbye. If you have time, and please, I think this is important. Please just grab a screenshot of this slide. You can have the QR code. You have the URL. We have a relatively short self-assessment in order to assess your organizational maturity in AI, in responsible AI. So again, you may have experts in AI, engineers or users, but responsible AI is another level. So this is free, and for you as well, for the Startup Chile community. If you complete the survey, you will receive a free results analysis from us. And I promise it will not be an AI only analysis. It will be done by our human experts to make sure that we can help you with the first steps towards using responsible AI in a way that makes you more competitive, if possible, of course. All right. So if you made a screenshot of this, anyway, I'll ask Teresa to share this if possible, so that it gets as far as possible. What we try to do is to support startups and SMEs in this journey through responsible AI. So thanks so much. I think this is just a start. And Teresa, I'm open to a few more questions, or we can stop whenever you want. I know you guys are busy. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Justo, for this bringing this topic to the community of Startup Chile. I just wanted to reinforce the call to the entrepreneurs to grab this opportunity to follow these courses and take advantage that is free for you guys. So it's going to be very, very helpful for all of us that we are in this journey together. So I don't know if you have more questions. I will stop the